Hi, this video is for Wednesday, December 2nd and Thursday, December 3rd. And we are talking about the last of the ACT science passage types. So we spent a day talking about the data passages, a day talking about the research passages. And so today we'll talk about conflicting viewpoints. But first I'd like to do just a quick Kahoot review for fun. So if you look on Google Classroom, you have that Kahoot linked there for today. So if you would play that game and just kind of it's mostly data, just kind of fun review questions there for data questions. Go ahead and play that Kahoot. And then when you are done with that, just a quick review about the data and research summary types of passages we've talked about so far. So you know now the format for the science test. You've got about 6 minutes per passage. It's more about science skills than science knowledge. So the answers are in the test in front of you. It's kind of open book. You want to go straight to the questions. And you know the passages are never going to be in the same order, so you can't really predict that. The questions do tend to progress from easy to hard within each passage. So the first question is usually easier than that 6th or 7th question. And then on the next passage, that first question again will be a little bit easier. So keep that in mind. And remember, you're going to go straight to the questions and you're going to use the locators. Those tell you where to look. Figure 1, study 1, table 2, and they tell you what you're looking for, whether it's a scientific term, a unit of measure, you're looking at your axis labels, you're looking at your chart or table headings, you're trying to figure out where stuff is located and what you're looking for. So the 2 data passages, you are just reading those visuals. You're relying mostly on the visuals there. You're thinking about trends, and you will have to do some calculations looking in between 2 data points or following a pattern off the chart or the graph. The 3 research passages that we talked about last class, they're labeled experiment 1 and 2 or study 1, 2, and 3. And they're all about, do you understand the design of the experiments? Do you understand their purpose, their methods, why they did certain things, hypothetical changes and how that would have impacted the results? And can you understand the results of the experiments as well? Can you understand whether it matched this hypothesis? Those were our yes, yes, no, no questions. And yes, you understand what they did, what the results were. You're going to rely on the visuals and the text. So you are going to start straight with the questions again, but you're going to look both in the visuals and in the text. Usually there's one question that comes from the introduction, several that come from the visual, and several that come from the text about each experiment. So that's kind of a quick review. Today, what we're talking about are these conflicting viewpoints passages, and your notes are going to go on slide 7, which is right here. All right. So this is the only other type of passage you'll see, and you can see there's 1 per test, and there are 7 questions per passage. So again, in your notes, you only have to write what's in bold, so keep that in mind. But these are called the dueling scientists. They are scientists that are arguing, or students, or sometimes hypotheses, but you are going to recognize their similarities and differences in what they believe. So it is usually labeled scientist 1, 2, and 3, or student 1 and 2, or hypothesis 1, 2, and 3. It's all about their similarities and their differences. So jot that down up top. I would not ignore the introduction. There is rarely a visual. So this one you'll recognize because it's almost all text. I've seen one before that had like a table with it, and it was like, here's what student 2 thinks. And then you had to kind of read the table to figure out what would match his opinion. But for the most part, they're usually just paragraphs of text. So it's like a paragraph about student 1, a paragraph about student 2, a paragraph about student 3, and that's it. But if there is a visual, obviously you're going to use it. But this one is usually 100% text. All right, so here you go on the strategies. You want to write all these down. This is the strategy that I keep wavering back and forth on. I used to say that you needed to read the viewpoints before going to the questions. I think that's up to you. I think you can do it still going straight to the questions. So you're going to have to figure out what works for you. Do you need to maybe read the introduction of each viewpoint just so you can understand the main idea for each person? Or do you want to still go straight to the questions and use your locator and say, okay, this is about scientist 2. I have to go back there and hunt for it. It's up to you on the reading thing. I think it can be done without reading and still going straight to the questions and then hunting for the answers. But if you feel more confident reading a little bit before you go to the questions, and if you have time to do that, go for it. That being said, this passage can suck up the most time because there is the most reading involved. It's all text. So you may want to save it for last. You don't know where it's going to show up. But if it's passage 2, you could skip those 7 questions on your Scantron and you could come back to it. Remember, your proctor has to give you a 5-minute warning. So you could say, okay, I only have 5 minutes left. I wish I had 6 to do this passage, but I'm ready to go back to conflicting viewpoints and get as much done as I can. And if that's the case, I would definitely just start with the questions if you're really low on time like that. So anyway, think about saving it for last. It's very easy that it could suck up 10 minutes of your time, and that would really hurt you on like maybe an easier data passage that you wouldn't get to at the end. So again, it's kind of personal preference, it's personal strategy. You think about what works for you. I would recommend maybe writing 1 or 2 words in the margin next to each person, or maybe just underlining something in each text. Sorry, we're doing bus evacuation drills, so I just paused it while they made an announcement on the speakers. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely okay to underline or to make a 1 or 2 word note in the margin just to try to keep the viewpoint straight. And then I just wanted to also point out, sometimes there are phrases in the questions that have that exact same phrase in the passage. So again, it's that scavenger hunt. It's that where's Waldo? I don't want you to get overwhelmed if you don't understand the science behind this. That's okay. You just have to kind of regurgitate what they said about scientist 1. Like if they think that, well, let me show you an example. They think biological aging is caused by the reactive oxygen species. It does not matter if you don't understand that. If you're like, what's a reactive oxygen species? If you don't know what cellular respiration is, if you don't know what biological aging is, does not matter. All I need to be able to do is to regurgitate that and say, student 1, his opinion was reactive oxygen species. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like you just have to restate what the passage says. So it really is just a hunt for the answer. Don't let the fact that you don't understand the science hold you back. Okay, so get those strategies down in your notes. Maybe save it for last, write some notes. I'm gonna skip that video, sorry. You don't have to write any of this down. I just know that it's all about similarities and differences between each person. And then again, if you're having trouble keeping them straight, I would really just look at those first sentences. I wanted to remind you, this is very formulaic science writing. So it's not like a story. It's very much like fill in the blank. And so if you can find it in one passage or like in one student's viewpoint, you can find it in every student's viewpoint. Does that make sense? Like it's very structured. Like, let me give you an example. In this one we're going to do today, there are 4 students, which is kind of a lot. And it says the first sentence of each person, biological aging is caused solely by blank. Every sentence, every student's viewpoint starts that way. It's just the blank that changes. So one guy thought it was caused by by reactive oxygen species. One guy thinks it's caused by crosslinks. Guy thinks it's caused by DNA damage. And one guy thinks it's caused by lipofuscin. So in the topic sentence, it tells me the main difference of each person, okay? And if I can find it for one guy in that same spot, I can probably find it for the other guys. So anyway, it's all about understanding points of view. Use those topic sentences to help you if you're really lost. Okay, these are the question types that are going to go in your notes. So you've got your strategies down. Now we're looking under the second part here, the question types. Okay, the first one, just write what's in bold. Make sure you really understand each author or theory's point of view. So what would student 2 predict? What would scientist 1 agree with? What statement agrees with this DNA hypothesis? You're just making sure you're looking at the right point of view. You're using that locator. Sometimes you can use process of elimination. I would encourage you to ignore irrelevant viewpoints. So if it's asking me what scientist 2 was going to predict to happen, I guarantee some of the answer choices are like, this is what student 1 would predict. This is what student 3 would predict. Those are irrelevant at this question. It's asking me only about student 2. I only care about student 2's viewpoint. So don't be tricked by those kind of like deceptive details where it's like, yeah, that was in the passage, but it was about student 1. We're asking about student 2. So just make sure you are just kind of repeating what the viewpoint says. You do not have to worry about the validity of the viewpoint. If you're like, well, that's not what my chemistry teacher told me, don't do that. Trust the passage. The answers are there. You're not worried about like the science. There may be a question about outside knowledge, but you would do that. That's usually towards the end of the passage, but for the most part, it's all in the text. All right, and then so you have to recognize each person's point of view, and you have to be able to compare and contrast those. So can you point out the similarities and differences? Student 1 and 2 would both agree with this. What would student 1 agree with but not student 2? So you're kind of making connections between the points of view. If it's something that it says all 3 people would agree with this, it's going to be something pretty broad. So keep that in mind. But for the most part, you're just kind of restating what the viewpoints say. All right. So what have we said? We've said consider saving it for the end. Consider reading parts of the passage first if you have time, like maybe just topic sentences. Maybe make a note or underline something or circle something as you look so you can keep the differences straight. But that's about it. Okay, cool, done. One other thing I need to share with you guys, I need to post this. I have a one-page cheat sheet. Let me see if it was there. I have a one-page cheat sheet about the outside knowledge that they like to ask about the most. I'm gonna look up ACT Science. Here it is. Okay, so I'm going to post this on Google Classroom as well. I kind of briefly alluded to the fact that they do sometimes ask outside knowledge questions. If I miss a question, it's usually this outside knowledge question because it's been 15 years since I've had a science class, so I've forgotten some of this. So I found this cheat sheet, and it's like, here's the science they ask you about the most. So you may want to look this over and just see if you feel good about it. Again, there's not very many outside knowledge questions, but if there is, some of these will be on there. Like they like to ask about Punnett squares. Sorry, I'm zooming in. I'm struggling here. They like to ask about freezing point, boiling point, turning from a solid to a liquid to a gas. They like to understand, to talk about chemical equations. So these are some things you might want to study. I've definitely seen one about alleles. I've seen one about ATP. I remember that one because I couldn't remember what ATP was. Maybe some about energy or circuits, but you may just want to look that over. Anyway, I'll just post it on Google Classroom because I think it's sort of helpful just to review and be like, do I know all of these things? Yeah, we've seen stuff about like hetero and homo and like what that means. Okay, so anyway, sorry, I'm getting off track. But what I'd like you to do now is with your in-class practice passages, would you take 6 minutes and would you do passages 4 and passage 2? Those are the only 2 passages we have left. They're going to go on slide 10 right here. So passage 4 is your conflicting viewpoints, okay? Sorry, that should not be. So use those strategies. Try reading or not reading, whichever strategy you want to try, and see how that works with your timing and how that works for just like hunting for things. And then go to passage 2 as well. It's the last research passage that we haven't done. So I can tell it's research because it says study 1, study 2, study 3, and go ahead and give yourself 6 minutes to do that one as well. So 6 minutes for passage 4, that's conflicting viewpoints. 6 minutes for passage 2, that is research. These are all in your in-class practice passages. It says use these for in-class practice. So make sure you're using the right packet, getting your answers on slide 10. If you want to know the answers and make sure you got those right, let me know. Send me an email and I will send you those answers so you can check your work. Your only homework is coming from the packet that says use these for homework, and it's passages 5 and 6. You're going to put your answers, there are the in-class practice passages, there are the homework passages. You're going to put those 2 homework passages on this Google form, and you can read the instructions at the top. It says use the test attached to complete passages 5 and 6. And the last thing I need you to do is a college essay prompt on slide 12. So slide 12 in your digital notebook, just a quick journal. It's journal number 2. Journal number 1 was the one we did last class about the impact that COVID has had on your life. This one, it says, when you meet someone for the first time, what do you want them to know about you, but generally don't tell them? So this is from Dartmouth College in New Hampshire. What's something that you would like somebody to know about you that they may not pick up on the first time they meet you? So I think this is a good question for a college admissions essay. It's kind of a, let's dig a little deeper into who you are and let us see that. So think about as you write, what do you want colleges to see about you that they may not see from your resume or from your teacher letters of recommendation? So think about that. All right, I've talked enough. I hope you've gotten your notes done. I hope you've done your 2 in-class practice passages, your 2 homework passages, and this college essay prompt. And I hope you have a great day. I'll make a video on Friday. All you'll have to do is kind of catch up on this homework. If you've missed your research summary passages or your conflicting viewpoints passage homework from today, you'll get to catch up on that on Friday. And that's it. All right. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.